The world is like a ride at an amusement park, and when you choose to go on it, you think it's real, because that's how powerful our minds are. And the ride goes up and down and round and round. It has thrills and chills, and it's very brightly colored, and it's very loud, and it's fun for a while. Some people have been on the ride for a long time, and they begin to question, is this real, or is this just a ride? And other people have remembered, and they come back to us, and they say, hey, don't worry, don't be afraid, ever, because this is just a ride.
Hello friends, I am the Anti-Terrorist. Thank you for all of your emails and your messages of support, and for staying part of the conversation. Now, this broadcast will be unlike any I've done before. I would like to take this opportunity to plant a few seeds, and to let you know where I stand. I am convinced at a fundamental level of the power of the individual. I believe that we create our own reality, and we're personally responsible for the lives and experiences that we have. Everything that you have in your life right now is something you created. And everything that is going on in the world right now, we created collectively. Now, I don't think anyone expresses my particular philosophy more profoundly or succinctly than Bill Hicks does.
Today, a young man on acid realized that all matter is merely energy condensed to a slow vibration, that we are all one consciousness experiencing itself subjectively. There is no such thing as death. Life is only a dream, and we are the imagination of ourselves. Here's Tom with the weather.
We're all one, yet we all have individual desires. Everything I do, everything you say, everything we think affects the entire universe. What happens to the one happens to the all, and what happens to all happens to the one. Now, most people don't like to acknowledge this truth because it would mean embracing the concept that we created the abuse or the lack or the suffering in our lives, or in the world as a whole. We are all connected, yet solely responsible for our personal actions. Now, never confuse responsibility with culpability. They're two entirely separate things. No one is culpable. Everyone should be responsible. That the two are so often used interchangeably is evidence of old programming that you can consciously choose to change. When people are told, you should take responsibility, they most often hear, accept punishment for, fill in the blank. As a result, most people tend to spend so much of their time and energy running from the former, culpability, that they rarely stop and embrace the latter, responsibility. Most people live much of their lives feeling like either a victim of something or a perpetrator of something else. It can be tiring. And the conspiracy theories fueling this game remind me of a set of Russian dolls. The pertinent question being who's really at the heart of things. The Queen twists open to reveal George Bush Sr., then George Bush Sr. twists open to unleash David Rockefeller, followed by a Rothschild, then a slowly descending, nested puzzle of the Black Pope, Elvis, the Anunnakian First Lady, Lizzie, the Mafia, and so on. I don't know. Perhaps the center doll is Homer Simpson, and inside that is a donut. I get the distinct feeling that if the dolls were all made from foam rubber and they were all exactly the same size, you could rearrange the plot sequence any way you liked, based on whatever you read on the internet the night before. Now, regarding the amorphous word they, it's used all the time, and the meaning is always different for every person employing the term. Throughout human history, there's always been a they, whether they refer to the ancient pharaohs, the Roman ruling class, the British imperialists, the Third Reich, the Tsars, the communists, the church. Whoever they are changes constantly, yet the concept of they has been a constant theme of the human experience. The truth is, they is simply other, the other part of the all, and the game of being other goes on. What interests me more than who they are is the question, what do they really want? My answer is, they want your industry. That's all. And they're willing to dangle the promise of eternal life if you work in this one for nothing. Or they might promise corporate bonuses, or your name on a public building, or a sainthood or a statue. They might even promise you your freedom, if you do what they say. Any ruling class, sees the seething biomass of humanity as existing to serve and service their needs, and they've developed manipulation into an art form in order to achieve this goal. If the enticements of jingoism, religion, television, any and all aspects of bread and circuses don't work, if a sovereign soul ever attempts to try and opt out, they do their utmost to corner you like a straying sheep and use every threat they can muster, including hunting you down and gunning you down in the name of their current status quo. They want your industry. They want you to serve and service them, and they'll stop at nothing to achieve this. Now, there's a secret the elite would rather the seething biomass didn't catch on to. They run the world like a corporation. To them, it really is just business. The tendency is to view the elite like a shadowy, sinister bogeyman. Don't fall for that nonsense. Think shadowy, sinister businessmen instead, and you'll be closer to the truth, in my opinion. They run everything like a corporation. Nations are corporations. Religions are run like corporations. Clubs, organizations, secret societies. The ones in charge are simply looking to maintain and hopefully increase their slice of the pie, pump profits, feather the CEO's nest. That's all. It's just business. It's the rest of us who take it so personally, and believe me, they count on that. They love to keep us angry, agitated, and continually arguing with each other. So what happens when a workforce gets larger than the job requires? Cutbacks, layoffs. Where the elite agenda is concerned, reducing the workforce could translate into poisoning the food and water supply, pushing tainted vaccines, or the old timeless classic, keeping different cultures schismed, agitated, and continually killing each other off.
So what do you think is a viable figure that Gaia, that the planet can sustain?
I would guess, living the way we do, not more than 1 billion, probably less. It's largely a matter of
You
how
say that with
live.
equanimity, but that's postulating the most dramatic and terrible and unimaginable sort of cull of the human species.
Well, I'm stick by it. I think it will happen. I think it's very probable.
What time frame?
It'll take almost a miracle to stop it happening. This century.
This century.
Factor in the current trend of constantly reminding the population that we're all a cancer on the earth, or we're all responsible for the changing climate, or we're guilty for the mess we're in today. And the amount of money involved in the carbon credit scheme begins to make a strange sort of sense, doesn't it? We're not dealing with Dr. Evil or Snidely Whiplash. We're simply faced with businessmen. And the good news is they have an Achilles heel. Now, let's say they do indeed manage to fulfill their manifest destiny. They bring the world population down. They clear the continental United States and return it to a pristine state to serve as a pleasure park nature reserve. They get all their workforce down to a manageable, cost-effective size. In other words, just enough people to serve and service their needs. Let's say they manage all of this. What then? In the end, people who live simply to dominate and enslave others always eat their own. They turn on each other. Dominating others is an addiction that they will never be able to lose. In their quest for superiority, when they run out of biomass to torment, they'll turn on one another. Now that's a small consolation if you and most of the rest of the population has long since fallen as a casualty to their agenda. But in approaching this life on Earth as a game, you can turn in the weapon in their hand by gaining and maintaining clarity about why and how they play, and what they hope to gain. Know thyself. Know thy adversary. Adopt and adapt their strategies, not to dominate them in turn, but to keep yourself free. Do everything possible to postpone any sweeping countermoves your adversary may attempt, and keep on buying time. Perhaps enough time for them to start killing each other off. And why not? They've been using that particular tactic on us for a millennia. Perhaps it's time to start learning from your opponent. In approaching life as a game, it follows that we all have a part to play. Now, one of my parts in this game, in this story, is to be the messenger, a potentiator of the mind, if you like. However, I'm also bringing a little more than the game obliges me to bring. I'm here to remind you that it's a game. In defining our game experience by deferring to rules that others have set, and by following those rules to the letter because it seems safer to do so, we risk being bound and hampered by those very rules. The key is flexibility, and trusting your own ability to fly by the seat of your pants. It's a skill that can only be mastered when you realize that you, the player, have the ability to level the playing field just by holding and exercising your own power, instead of automatically deferring to that of others. Now, games are only fun when you commit. For instance, you can't play a murder mystery game without committing yourself and suspending disbelief, can you? Otherwise, the game isn't fun and soon becomes a case of going through the motions. Your job in this game is to play full out, to play for keeps and commit to the game, to immerse yourself completely, whilst never forgetting that it is a game.